Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into what's happening in Pakistan these days?
Always ready.
Great. So we've got like a whole stack of articles here from Pakistani newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
all published just today, November 30th, 2024.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to kind of take a look at what they're saying about all sorts of things like
Right.
climate change, technology, social issues, all that.
Sounds fascinating. What really strikes me is how these articles don't hold back.
Yeah.
They show all the contradictions in Pakistan right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a snapshot of what people are actually dealing with.
Okay, so let's jump into it. The COP29 climate conference just finished up.
Right, in Baku.
Yeah, in Baku.
Azerbaijan.
And there's an opinion piece in the News International, COP29 Storms, Pledges, Politics, that breaks down what the outcomes mean for Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the link to that article in the description below if you want to read the whole thing.
It brings up a really important point, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone agreed that developing countries need $1.3 trillion every year by 2035.
Wow, that's a lot.
To deal with climate change. Right. But the pledges at COP29...
I think the promise is to give that money.
Yeah, exactly. They only added up to $300 billion.
Oh, wow. So way less.
Way less. And even that, you have to think about inflation.
Oh, right. So it'll be even less.
Exactly.
So Pakistan's still trying to recover from those terrible floods in 2022.
Devastating.
And this funding gap just makes things so much harder.
Yeah, it feels like a broken promise, you know?
It's like they said one thing and then...
After something completely different.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder about... are the developed countries really serious about helping countries like Pakistan deal with climate change?
That's the big question, isn't it?
So for our listeners, I'm curious, how do you see this funding gap affecting your life in Pakistan?
Yeah. What are the things that worry you the most?
Because this is not just about numbers on a page, right?
Not at all.
This is about people's lives.
Exactly. Think about it. If we don't have enough money for things like stronger infrastructure...
Oh, right, to handle more floods and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or developing crops that can survive droughts.
That's really important.
Otherwise, we could end up with food shortages.
Climate change is not some far-off problem.
It's happening now.
Right here, right now. Okay, so let's move on to something a little bit different. Technology.
Always interesting.
Yeah, these articles paint this picture of technology being both this amazing tool,
but also kind of a risky one.
Yeah, a double-edged sword.
Exactly. So there's this editorial, "Firewall has to go," in the Express Tribune.
Okay.
We'll link it below. And it argues that restricting the internet...
Like with the firewall and the VPN bans?
Yeah, those are actually hurting Pakistan's economic goals.
They're trying to reach a $1 trillion economy, right?
Huge goal.
With $60 billion of that coming from IT exports.
Ambitious.
But how can we do that if we're making it so hard for tech companies to work here?
Yeah, and it's not just companies. Think about all the talented people in Pakistan who are trying to build their careers in tech.
Oh, right. They need access to the global market.
Exactly.
This article actually says that just one day of internet slowdown
just one day
costs the economy over $200 million.
It's incredible.
It's a lot of money. Okay, so then we have another article that's kind of the opposite view, right?
Yeah, this one's called "How Pakistan's VPN Ban Undermines Rights."
It's an opinion piece in the News International. We'll link it below.
It basically says that, yeah, the government talks about national security and immoral content.
Right. They say that's why they need to restrict VPNs.
But the article argues that it actually undermines people's basic rights.
Because it's like opening the door to the government watching everything we do online, right?
Exactly. And we don't have strong data protection laws here.
So it's a really tough question.
Yeah.
Are we giving up too much freedom in the name of security?
What do you think?
I don't know. It's a tough one. What about you? What do you think our listeners think?
Yeah, I'd love to hear their perspectives on this.
Definitely share your thoughts in the comments. Okay, let's talk about something a little bit heavier now. Social issues.
These are important, but often overlooked.
Yeah, for sure. There's this editorial in the Express Tribune called "Karachi's Missing Children."
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it says over 2,000 children have gone missing in Karachi just since January of this year.
It's a staggering number.
And the police have no leads in 230 of those cases.
It makes you wonder what's being done to protect our children.
It's terrifying for those families.
Absolutely. The not knowing must be unbearable.
And then there's this other editorial in the News International, "No World for Women."
This one is tough to read.
Yeah, it really hits hard.
Yeah.
Globally, a woman is killed every 10 minutes because of violence from a partner or family member.
And in Pakistan, there's been a huge increase in unresolved cases of violence against women.
81% increase.
It's a stark reminder of the dangers women face every day.
These social issues sometimes get lost in all the political news.
But they're so important.
Because they show us who we are as a society.
Exactly. They reflect our values and priorities.
So what do you think? Are we doing enough to address these issues and make Pakistan a safer, more just place for everyone?
That's the question we all need to be asking ourselves.
That's a big one for sure.
And we need to find answers.
All right, well, we've covered climate change, technology, and some tough social issues.
Lots to think about.
But there's still more to discuss. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into Pakistan's internal conflicts and governance.
Can't wait.
See you there.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Pakistan.
We've talked about some pretty big issues so far.
Yeah, climate change, technology, social challenges.
But now let's get into something maybe even more complex.
Pakistan's internal conflicts.
And how the country is being governed.
These things really shape where Pakistan is headed in the long run.
It's easy to focus on, like, the daily news.
Yeah, the headlines.
But these deeper issues are so important.
There's this piece in the Express Tribune that's really thought-provoking. Pakistan's multiple wars and the India factor.
Oh, okay.
We'll link it below. And it basically says that Pakistan isn't fighting just one war, but many.
Any wars?
Yeah, like ethnic conflicts, sectarian violence, tribal disputes.
Oh, wow.
Even the fight against climate change.
Like they're all happening at the same time?
Exactly. And the author connects this to what's been going on in Islamabad.
The protests and the crackdown.
Exactly. They say it's all a symptom of this deeper division in Pakistan.
Like a lack of trust between people and the government.
Right. They even use this phrase, porous first line of defense.
What does that even mean?
It means that all these internal conflicts make Pakistan weaker.
Oh, so it's like if a country is fighting within itself.
It can't really stand strong against outside pressures.
Okay, so it's not just about what's happening inside Pakistan.
It also affects how Pakistan interacts with the rest of the world.
Speaking of which, there's this other opinion piece in the News International called MAGA Diplomacy, Pakistan and Trump.
Ah, with Trump back in the White House.
Exactly. We'll link it below.
Yeah.
And it talks about all these challenges Pakistan faces in its relationship with the U.S.
Especially with things like China and India in the mix.
Yeah, it's like this balancing act.
The U.S. is a global superpower.
Or we can't ignore them.
But they're also close to India.
Which has always been a complicated relationship for Pakistan.
Right, and this article argues that Pakistan needs to find a way to maintain good relations with the U.S.
While also making sure we're not putting all our eggs in one basket.
Exactly, diversifying our partnerships.
So it's not just about dealing with external pressures, but also making sure things are stable at home.
Because that affects how strong we are on the world stage.
So how do these articles assess, like, how well Pakistan is being governed?
Well, there's a piece in Dawn called Reform Agenda.
Okay.
You can find it in the description, and it suggests some pretty big changes.
Like what?
Breaking down the 4 provinces into 22 smaller ones.
Wow, that's a huge change.
The author thinks it would make governance more efficient.
Because smaller areas are easier to manage.
Yeah, exactly. And it could help with development, too.
More focus on local needs.
Right, but it would definitely be a challenge to implement.
Pakistan has always had a strong central government.
True. And the author also suggests limiting all political terms to just one.
Whoa, so no more re-election.
Nope, just one term and then you're done.
That would shake things up for sure.
They argue it could reduce corruption.
How so?
Because politicians would be focused on long-term goals, not just winning the next election.
Interesting. It would definitely be a big change to our political system.
It makes you think about all the different ways we could improve governance in Pakistan.
So we've talked about these big picture ideas.
Internal conflicts, global relationships, reforming the government.
But what about everyday people?
How are these things affecting their lives?
Right, because it all comes down to that in the end.
Well, there's this editorial in the Express Tribune called Pervasive Menace of Beggary. We'll link it below, and it talks about how giving money to beggars actually might not be helpful.
Really? But isn't it like a good deed?
The article argues that it can create a cycle of dependency.
Oh, so instead of helping people get out of poverty,
It keeps them trapped.
makes sense. They suggest this idea of intentional charity.
Which means being more thoughtful about how we give.
So like not just giving handouts, but actually helping people become self-sufficient.
Exactly, like supporting students or people who are trying to start businesses.
And the article mentions that people in Pakistan give an estimated $42 billion to beggars every year.
Imagine if even a portion of that went towards intentional charity.
That could really make a difference.
It's about empowering people, giving them the tools to build a better life.
Okay, so we've covered a lot in this part.
From internal conflicts to the way we give to those in need.
It's all connected in a way.
Definitely all part of the bigger picture of what's happening in Pakistan.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our Pakistan deep dive.
We've talked about so much.
Yeah, climate change, technology, all the challenges.
And now it's like, okay, what can we actually do about all of this?
Right, because it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
It's a lot.
It's like, how do you even begin to tackle these huge problems?
Well, the good news is
Huh?
these articles actually give us some pretty practical ideas.
Okay, like what? Give us some examples.
Well, remember that editorial in Dawn about smog?
Smog struggle, right?
Yeah, we'll link it below.
We talked about how bad the air quality is.
It's a major problem.
Yeah, and I remembered saying that even though one person doing something small might not seem like much,
Right.
when everyone does it,
It adds up.
makes a big difference.
So, like, making sure your car is running properly.
Okay.
Cutting down on driving, maybe taking public transport.
Those things actually help.
Yeah, even those small things contribute to cleaner air.
And they talked about planting trees too, right?
Yeah, urban forestry.
Creating more green spaces in cities.
It's not just about the environment either.
Oh, yeah.
Green spaces can actually improve people's mental health.
That was interesting.
And the article also said we need to push for tougher rules on industries.
Oh, yeah. Make sure they're not polluting.
Exactly. It's not enough to just talk about it.
We need action.
Exactly. We need to hold people accountable.
So it's like using your voice to demand change, right?
Yes. Whether it's writing to your elected officials
Going to those town hall meetings.
or supporting organizations that are working on these issues.
Because you can't just sit back and expect others to fix everything.
We all have a role to play.
That reminds me of another thing that came up a lot in these articles.
Oh, what's that?
Protecting freedom of expression.
Oh, that's so crucial.
Yeah, and supporting a free press.
Targeting the messenger. That editorial in the News International.
The one about the journalist who was arrested.
Metulian.
Yeah, it was really worrying.
It shows how vulnerable journalists are.
Especially when they're critical of the government.
It makes people afraid to speak up.
So how can we support journalists and a free press?
Well, you can subscribe to independent media outlets.
Give them money to keep running.
Exactly. And you can share their articles on social media.
Get the word out.
Yeah, and call out anyone who tries to silence them.
Because we need a free press to keep things transparent, right?
Absolutely. They're like the watchdogs.
Making sure the government doesn't abuse its power.
And it's not just about journalists either. It's about everyone's right to speak freely.
Remember that article about VPNs? How Pakistan's VPN ban undermines rights.
Yeah, it argued that restricting access to information is really dangerous.
Especially if the government can just watch everything we do online.
Exactly. It creates this climate of fear where people are afraid to express themselves.
So we need to fight for digital rights, too.
Absolutely support organizations that are pushing for a free and open internet.
And demand strong data protection laws.
Because our online freedom is just as important as our offline freedom.
And we can't forget about empowering marginalized communities.
That's so important.
That article, No World for Women. All that violence against women is just unacceptable.
We have to challenge those patriarchal attitudes.
And create a culture where women feel safe and respected.
Support organizations working on this issue. Educate yourself and others.
Speak out against any kind of discrimination.
It's about creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
And Karachi's missing children. That editorial really got to me, too.
It's a problem that needs more attention.
We need better systems to protect children.
More coordination between government agencies.
And support for the families who are going through this nightmare.
It's about all of us being more aware and looking out for each other.
It's about taking responsibility for our community.
And that's really the key takeaway from all of these articles.
Yeah, like we're all in this together.
We face these challenges together.
And we can overcome them together.
It's about collective action.
Recognizing that even small things can make a difference.
Planting a tree, supporting a local business, having difficult conversations.
It all adds up.
We have the power to shape the future of Pakistan.
It's not just up to the government or big organizations.
It's up to all of us.
This deep dive has been eye-opening.
It's given us a lot to think about.
But it's also given me hope.
Me too.
Because it shows that change is possible.
Especially when we work together.
So let's keep these conversations going.
Let's stay informed.
Let's take action.
And let's build a better Pakistan for everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
Until next time.